Before we dive into the story, let me just say that life doesn't always go the way you expect. Sometimes the people who come into your life aren't there to follow society's rules, and sometimes you find yourself caught in emotions you never knew existed. That's exactly what happened to me. When I look back on this now, I'm not proud of it, but it shaped who I am today. I wasn't prepared for how one decision could lead to a cascade of secrets, confusion, and guilt. To make things even more complicated, it was with someone I could never admit my feelings for. My younger brother. Let me explain before you jump to conclusions. I grew up in a family that wasn't particularly close. We were polite, yes, but not overly warm. My brother Liam was 5 years younger than me. For most of my life, we were in completely different worlds. I was focused on high school when he was still watching cartoons. I was off to college while he was just getting into his awkward teenage years. But when I came back home after graduation, something shifted. Liam wasn't the shy, awkward kid I remembered. He'd grown up, and suddenly, he wasn't just my little brother anymore. He was smart, kind, and surprisingly charming. I thought I was imagining things at first. How could I be so drawn to someone I'd practically helped raise? But the feeling was there, undeniable and unshakable. One evening, we were sitting in the backyard under the stars just talking. It started innocently enough, reminiscing about childhood memories, teasing each other about silly things we used to do. But then he said something that stopped me cold. You know, I've always looked up to you. Liam said softly, but lately I feel like I see you differently. I didn't know what to say. My heart was racing and not in the way it should have been. I laughed nervously and tried to change the subject, but his words lingered in the air between us. That was the beginning. What Liam said that night was innocent enough, but it opened a door I couldn't close. Over the next few weeks, things only got more complicated, and I started noticing feelings I had no business feeling. After that night under the stars, I tried to convince myself that Liam's words meant nothing, that he was just being sentimental, maybe even a little awkward. But deep down, I couldn't shake the way he looked at me, like I was someone more than his big sister. I busied myself with life, job applications, friends, anything to keep my mind occupied, but somehow, Liam always found a way to be around. He'd stop by my room to chat about his day, linger in the kitchen while I cooked, and sit a little too close when we watched TV together. And I let him. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. Families are supposed to be close, right? But this wasn't just closeness. It was tension, a silent, unspoken pull between us that I was too scared to acknowledge, but too weak to avoid. The tipping point came on a rainy Sunday afternoon. It had been pouring all day, and we were both stuck inside, bored and restless. Liam suggested we play a card game like we used to when we were kids. You've got no chance, I teased, trying to keep things light. We'll see about that, he shot back with a grin. As we played, the jokes and laughter started to feel different. Every touch of his hand when he passed me the cards felt intentional. Every glance lingered a little too long. I felt my heart pounding, and it wasn't because of the game. At one point, I reached across the table to grab the deck, and our hands brushed. It was such a small moment, but it felt like electricity. I froze, and so did he. We locked eyes, and for a second, it felt like the whole world had stopped. You feel it too, don't you? He asked quietly. I didn't know how to respond. Deny it felt like a lie, but admitting it, that would change everything. I don't know what you're talking about, I whispered, pulling my hand back and standing up quickly. But Liam wasn't letting it go. He followed me into the living room, his expression serious. Don't do that, he said. Don't pretend this isn't happening. It's wrong, I blurted out. We can't feel this way. Why not, he challenged. I know what we're supposed to be, but I can't help how I feel, and I don't think you can either. I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that I felt like I was being pulled in two directions, and no matter which way I went, someone would get hurt. I told Liam we couldn't talk about it anymore, but the damage was already done. The lines had been blurred, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't unfeel what I felt. After that confrontation, things between Liam and me became complicated. We never spoke directly about what had happened, but it was always there, simmering under the surface. Every glance, every word, Every moment we spent together felt charged, like we were dancing around something we couldn't name. I tried to act normal, but normal didn't exist anymore. If I spent too much time with Liam, I felt guilty, like I was walking a tightrope and could fall at any moment. If I avoided him, it felt like I was ripping a part of myself away. The hardest part, he wasn't making it easy to keep my distance. Liam started finding excuses to spend more time together. He'd offer to help me with errands, suggest we watch a movie, or just hang out in my room. And the worst part was I wanted him there. One evening, we were watching a movie in the living room. It was some romantic drama that neither of us was paying much attention to. The lights were dim, and the rain outside added a quiet backdrop to the scene. I don't even remember what started it, but at some point, I rested my head on Liam's shoulder. It was such a small, innocent gesture, but it felt like crossing a line. He didn't move, didn't say a word, but I could feel the tension in the air. "You're making this really hard," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What am I making hard?" I asked, playing dumb, even though I knew exactly what he meant. "This," he said, gesturing vaguely between us. "Us. There is no us." "Liam," I said, pulling away. "There can't be." "Then why does it feel like there is?" I didn't have an answer. Instead, I stood up and mumbled something about being tired before heading to my room. I thought that would be the end of it for the night, but I was wrong.